I'm a beta with a synthetic gland. I have pheromones, but I can't be marked. I was sent to the Booth family to serve as a living suppressant for their son. A few years later, an omega with near-perfect compatibility for William Booth appeared. I had the synthetic gland removed and walked away without a second thought. Later, William got a tattoo on his own gland. He tells everyone it's the mark I left on him. When he saw me again, he asked with red-rimmed eyes, "Babe, you marked me. Why don't you want me anymore?" William Booth's rut hit him out of nowhere. I had just left the hospital when I got the call. The synthetic gland in the back of my neck had just been refilled with synth hormones, and it was uncontrollably releasing its scent. The second I got in the car, I was pulled into a scorching hot embrace. "What took you so long?" "The injection requires a half-hour observation period before they let you leave," I explained softly. He rubbed my gland through the scent patch. "Not too hard, not too soft. What did they say at your checkup?" I looked down at our intertwined legs, avoiding the question. "Dr. Lee just said not to bite it too hard or too often. It's been 4 years since I had this gland implanted. My body still rejects it. Dr. Lee has always advised me to have it removed, worried the entire back of my neck would get infected. But my contract with the Booths isn't up yet, and William still needs this gland. I have no choice but to change my monthly check UPS to weekly ones. I'm always gentle." William's brow furrowed as he irritably tore off the new patch I just applied. The scent of green pear, not too strong and not too faint, filled the air. William buried his face in the crook of my neck, sniffing me all over. "It's not enough." His heavy breathing was deafening in the car, each breath a drumbeat against my ears. My own breathing grew ragged. William's hand settled on my lower back, pulling me closer to him. Without warning, a foreign scent pierced the air. It was faint, but impossible to ignore. It shocked me out of my daze. Why did he smell like an omega? In disbelief, I leaned toward his shoulder and took a few deep breaths. It wasn't my imagination. While I was still stunned, William turned my face to his and kissed me. Startled, I pushed against him frantically. "I don't want to do it here. Can we please go home first?" He let out a soft TSK but did as I asked, releasing me. Back at the house, William couldn't hold back any longer. A tidal wave of Phrygia pheromones crashed over me, making my legs so weak I could barely stand. The alpha impatiently pressed on the back of my head, his canines finding the nape of my neck. A shiver ran through me, and I reminded him in a trembling voice, "William, you can't bite yet. A synthetic gland isn't like a natural one. It's incredibly fragile right after a synth hormone refill. Can't withstand an alpha's bite." "But why, babe?" He had his prize right in front of him but couldn't have it. William started to cry in frustration, his tears soaking my neck. He bit my neck, then moved lower, biting again and again. The pain made me want to cry, and my chest felt tight and heavy for some reason. It must be because that omega scent on him is so overwhelming. It's suffocating me, making my whole body ache. That's why I can't breathe. I bit him back in anger, grabbing a fistful of his hair. "If you love biting so much, go find an omega to bite. Why does he have to torture me?" William paused, his bites turning into kisses. "I don't want anyone else. I only want you, babe." With that, the scent of Phrygia swept over me, a tidal wave that submerged me completely, pulling me under to rise and fall with him. By the time it was over, it was the afternoon of the 3rd day. William carried me to the bed and, without a moment's hesitation, pulled away and left. I rubbed my sore lower back and swallowed, trying to push down the bitter taste in my throat. Just as disappointment set in, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see William standing by the bed, holding a first aid kit. Our eyes met, and he tilted his chin at me. "Lie down." I obediently rested my head on the pillow, exposing the back of my neck. The synthetic gland under my skin was red and swollen, throbbing with a needle-like pain. William's face darkened as he applied medicine to the gland. "I thought you said it doesn't swell up anymore." "It still does sometimes." That wasn't true. "It swells up every time I get a synth hormone shot. Sometimes it gets as big as a dinner roll." I used to schedule my injections to avoid his ruts. So William never knew. What's so good about this damn gland anyway? Why did you listen to the old man and get this thing implanted in the first place? My mouth opened, but I couldn't find the words. If I hadn't gotten it, I wouldn't have the chance to be by his side right now. Smelling the scent on him, I remembered how suddenly this rut had come on and asked casually, "Was it an omega that triggered your rut this time?" "No," William said. "I'll get it checked out later." He paused, then added, "I went to pick up a friend this afternoon. He's not an omega. If not, then where did the omega pheromones come from?" "Oh," I said, lowering my head in silence. He wrapped my neck in gauze. Through the fabric, he leaned down and kissed the spot, his voice gentle. "Alex, you should get the gland removed." After taking a shower, William called for the family doctor, Dr. Lee, to come check his own glands, leaving me alone in the room. My body was exhausted, but I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, William's words echoed in my mind. And that omega scent on him, even though it had been replaced by green pear and freesia, it still lingered in my nose, refusing to dissipate. Since I couldn't sleep, I finally got up and went downstairs to find something to eat. I ran right into the butler, who told me Mr. Booth wanted to see me. I quickly drank a nutrition shake and dragged my tired body into the car heading for the family estate. The middle-aged alpha leaned back in his chair, smoking a cigarette in silence. Through the swirling smoke, his sharp gaze made me fidget uncomfortably. After a long while, he finally spoke. "Alex, how long have you had that gland?" There wasn't a trace of pheromones in the study, but I felt a baseless sense of dread. "For years." "4 years." Julian Booth's eyes fell to my neck. "How is it? Does it still bother you?" he asked, already knowing the answer. As he spoke, the gland on my neck began to burn and itch, a sharp, stinging sensation. My fingernails dug into my palms as I lied. "It doesn't bother me much anymore." Julian Booth nodded, humming in thought. "Once William's birthday is over, you can leave. The money will be transferred to your account on your way out." I pressed my lips together, wanting to say my contract still had 2 years left. But then I heard him continue, "William has a friend who recently had his secondary presentation. Alex, do you know how high their compatibility is?" I shook my head, a wave of disappointment washing over me as I seemed to smell that omega scent again. 95%. I looked up in shock, trying to read Julian Booth's expression to see if he was telling the truth. William's glands had a congenital defect, which meant his compatibility with any omega never exceeded 20%. Because of this, the Booth family invested in the synthetic gland project and began searching for suitable betas. I was one of them. I was even lucky enough to be the beta who got to study alongside William, eventually making it all the way to college with him. In my junior year, the synthetic gland was successfully developed. But it came with a significant risk of death, so very few betas were willing to get the implant. At that time, all the betas sponsored by the Booth family went to the hospital to receive the synthetic gland implant. I was no exception. After the surgery, I was in and out of the hospital for a year due to severe rejection reactions. The moment I was discharged, I received a contract from the Booth family. Of all the betas who received the implant, my compatibility with William was the highest. The Booths offered me $5 million to be William's human suppressant for 5 years. I had no choice but to refuse. I signed my name without hesitation, and so began my life of living with William 24/7. William was furious with my decision at first. He couldn't seem to believe that the person who had grown up with him could be so greedy for money, that I wasn't even afraid to die. During another rejection episode, the back of my neck swelled up, the pain so intense that my vision blurred, fading in and out of black. William stood by my bed, his face grim, and said coldly, "Do I not give you enough? You really had to risk your life for this money?" He was good to me. Whatever he had, he'd give me a share. Since moving into the Booth household, I'd never lacked for anything: food, clothing, or shelter. Sometimes I even wondered if I was their long-lost child. Maybe that's why William chose me to live with them, to stay by his side. Later, during his ruts, he was no longer content with just kissing and cuddling like before. He became more and more demanding, asking for more each time. After a few rounds of that, I was traumatized. The moment I smelled his pheromones, my legs would turn to jelly. I thought soothing him would be an easy, simple task. I never expected it to be so exhausting. Turned out he had been holding back all along. William, maybe you should try finding an omega. I can't count how many times I'd said that. And every time, William would answer by sinking his teeth into the back of my neck. Afterward, while bandaging my gland, he'd soothe me, saying, if I didn't bite, wouldn't all the pain you went through for this implant be for nothing? Besides, I'm just doing this to show it was worth the price. That's why I like biting it. But you can't treat it like a disposable toy. I'm sorry. I'll be gentler next time. There wasn't a hint of remorse in his voice. Slowly, I got used to the piercing pain. I savored the way he depended on me during his ruts, inevitably sinking deeper and deeper. But I always knew the truth. A beta was never the right choice for William, not even one with the most compatible synthetic gland. So, despite the slim chances, the Booths never gave up their search for an omega who could be a perfect match for him. For years, they never found one. I thought I would always be the most special person in William's life. But I never expected that the most special omega would finally appear. The moment I walked in the door, I was hit with the scent of an omega. It was the same scent I'd smelled on William the other day. Then, I saw a boy sitting on the sofa. In that instant, I understood why Julian Booth wanted me to leave so quickly. Noah White was stunningly beautiful, with fair skin and delicate features. His pheromone level was also very high even through a scent patch. I could easily smell his fragrance. In terms of looks or family background, there was no comparison between us. No wonder William let him leave his scent all over him the first day he was back. Seeing me, Noah smiled and greeted me. You must be the Mr. Fong the butler mentioned, right? Hi, I'm Noah White. I reached out and shook his hand. I'm Alex Fong. He smiled at me so gently. The moment our eyes met, even my heart couldn't help but speed up, let alone an alpha who would be influenced by his pheromones. Noah pulled me to the sofa and explained softly, I haven't been back here in a long time, and I don't have a place to stay. So Mr. Booth let me stay here with William. Mr. Fong, I hope you don't mind. What right did I have to mind? Not only did Julian Booth approve of him staying here, but William had personally gone to pick him up. All I could do was accept his arrival. The next step was to leave and not disturb him and William. What are you doing, grabbing Alex? Is he someone you can touch? William suddenly appeared behind me, his face blank as he stared at Noah's hand on my arm. We were both startled by him. I wasn't. Noah hastily pulled his hand back and scooted to the other side of the sofa. William strode over in a few steps, grabbed my arm, and pulled me in to sniff me all over. Are you wearing perfume? He always hated any scent on me other than freesia and green pear. Even my shampoo and laundry detergent were custom made for him. I shook my head and sniffed myself, but I couldn't smell anything. Maybe it's... My gaze slowly drifted to Noah. He shook his head repeatedly, looking completely innocent. I don't use perfume. As he spoke, ignoring Noah's presence, the scent of freesia began to spread through the air. Noah's face immediately changed. He stood up, trembling. I'll go back to my room. He fled in a panic, leaving me alone to face a grim-faced William, whose pheromones were making my legs weak. His body, heavy as a mountain, pressed down on me, and I could barely breathe. William, get off me. William ignored me, opening his mouth and biting the side of my neck without a second thought. There were security cameras in the living room, and servants were still around outside. I closed my eyes in humiliation, my legs struggling uselessly. Young master, the butler's voice came from a short distance away. William became a little more lucid and asked impatiently, What is it? Fighting against the pressure of the freesia scent, the butler wiped the sweat from his brow. Mr. White is in heat. William and I stared at each other in stunned silence. I belatedly realized that William seemed off, too. His burning temperature and uncontrolled pheromones were all signs that he was also going into a rut. William clicked his tongue. Go give him a suppressant shot. What's the use in calling me? The butler didn't move. Sir said to let. He paused, then gritted his teeth and continued through the thickening freesia scent, to let the young master go. William let out a cryptic sneer. Is Julian really that desperate? The butler remained silent, his back pressed against the wall, more beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Even I, who was long accustomed to the scent of freesia, felt suffocated by the overwhelming pheromones at that moment. William stood up without a word, his face as dark as a thundercloud. I reached for his arm but only managed to grab the corner of his sleeve. I could only watch his broad back and call out a reminder. William, you should give yourself a shot first. William stopped in his tracks and looked back at me. Alex, do you really think he's just sending me to give Noah a suppressant shot? My mouth opened, but I dodged his gaze as if trying to escape. After a long pause, I feigned ignorance, blinking my eyes and asking in a stiff voice, isn't he? When a highly compatible alpha and omega trigger each other's heat, a simple suppressant shot is never enough to solve the problem. I just didn't want to face it, so I pretended not to understand, telling him to just give the shot. But William had to press the issue. I lowered my head, my nose stinging with a feeling so unbearable I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred, and it felt like my hearing was gone too. The synthetic gland in my neck sent a continuous, crawling itch through me, a constant reminder. I was just a beta, a fake omega. My pheromones couldn't trigger an alpha's rut, couldn't soothe an alpha, and couldn't accept an alpha's mark. Unlike Noah, even with his scent patch on, his pheromones were so faint I couldn't detect them at all. Yet William had been thrown into a rut by that same scent I couldn't even smell. In my sorrow, a cold object was suddenly pressed into my palm. I rubbed my eyes and looked closely. It was a suppressant shot. The cool syringe pulled me back to my senses, a wave of confusion washing over me. When I looked up, William was already walking slowly upstairs. Alex, you go give it to him. When you're done, come back quickly. I'll be waiting for you in my room. When I came out of Noah's room, the freesia scent in the air hadn't diminished at all. William was curled up on the bed, lying on a messy pile of my clothes. He lifted his head from the pile, dissatisfied, and complained. What took you so long? You didn't soothe Noah, did you? Before William's anger could erupt, I quickly denied it. No, I was just worried I might have Noah's scent on me, so I took a shower in the next room. I only came in after making sure I was clean and scent-free. I had my own selfish desires, my own possessiveness. I didn't want William to smell Noah, and I didn't want him to carry any other scent. You'd better not have. William grabbed the back of my head and kissed me. Our tongues tangled, and his pheromones spread through my mouth. My legs were too weak to stand. I thought about how frequently William had been going into heat lately. I was reaching my limit. If it weren't for the love I felt for him deep down, I would have locked him in his room the moment the butler said Noah was in heat. Instead of what I was doing now, silently praying that Julian Booth would have mercy and give me a chance, that he wouldn't make me leave William so soon. As much as I didn't want to face it, William's birthday arrived. At the party, he stood in a perfectly tailored custom suit, his expression neutral as he was surrounded by people. Noah was arranged to be by his side, wearing a suit of the same style but a different color. They looked like a perfect match. I pressed my lips together and looked away, but the image remained burned into my mind. Julian Booth appeared behind me at some point, asking casually, Alex, you haven't forgotten our agreement for today, have you? I remember I managed, my voice slow. Half a month ago, Julian Booth had told me to leave today. What do you think of that boy, Noah, as a partner for William? I forced a smile, my voice stiff. A match made in heaven. Julian Booth smiled with satisfaction and waved me away, telling me to go downstairs. The moment I got downstairs, the alpha who had just been surrounded by people suddenly appeared beside me, pulling me into his arms. I instinctively glanced at Noah in the distance. He was talking to one of William's alpha friends, completely unaware of what was happening over here. Let me go, I struggled slightly. William held me tighter, his nose brushing against the back of my neck. Where's my birthday present? Let go first. William reluctantly released me, stealing a kiss from my lips. I slowly pulled a small cloth pouch from my pocket. Here. Happy birthday. So small. William eagerly opened it. It was a little wooden carving of a cartoon version of him. My skills were limited, so it wasn't very good, full of crooked and uneven spots. So ugly, William said with disgust. Then give it back. I had spent half a month carving that little thing, and he dared to criticize it like that. I made a move to snatch the carving back. William dodged my hand with lightning speed, clutching it tighter than anyone. He grumbled defensively, "You can't take back a gift. Alex, you gave it to me, so it's mine now." He leaned close to my ear, his warm breath tickling the side of my neck as he spoke in a low, menacing tone. "Just like you. I've bitten my mark all over your neck. You're mine. You can't belong to anyone else, and I'll never let you go." With that, he bit the side of my neck. "But I'm about to be forced to leave you. It doesn't matter if my neck is bitten raw. A beta is still just a beta, unable to be marked by an alpha, and unworthy of standing by an alpha's side." I glanced at the time. It was almost the moment Julian Booth and I had agreed upon. My chest ached fiercely. I took a deep breath, unable to bring myself to look at William. Annoyed by my daze, he reached out and pinched my cheek. "What are you thinking about?" I was about to give a vague answer when one of William's friends called him over from a distance. Relieved, I gave him a little push. "Go on, hurry up." William grabbed my wrist, his voice low. "Alex, you're not going to leave me, are you?" He seemed to sense something, his eyes boring into me. My scalp tingled, and I guiltily avoided his gaze. Besides me, only Julian Booth knew I was leaving, and there was no way Julian would have told William. I composed myself, cautiously glancing up at his expression. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Why the sudden question?" William rubbed the back of my neck. "Nothing. I just suddenly regret agreeing to let the old man throw this birthday party. We should have just celebrated alone, the two of us, without anyone else bothering us." I patted the arm he had wrapped around my waist, trying to soothe him. "It's not too late for me to celebrate with you alone tonight." I gave him a suggestive wink. William got the hint, his eyes glowing. "Then I want you to wear that little skirt for me." William's friend called him again. "Okay, go on. Don't keep them waiting." "You come with me," William said, refusing to let go of my hand. "If I go with you, how am I supposed to leave? The car Julian arranged is already waiting for me at the back gate. I need to go to the restroom first." William stared at me in silence for a long moment, his gaze almost piercing through me. Finally, he let go. "Alex, just wait for me a little longer. I'll be right back to be with you." "Okay," I managed to say, my voice strained. He looked back every few steps. "Alex, don't lie to me. You be good and wait for me." I stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Looking up, I met Julian Booth's eyes. They were filled with warning and urgency. As if waking from a dream, I hurried to the back gate. As the car slowly pulled away from the Booth estate, I looked at the bustling garden, my lips forming silent words. "Goodbye, William." The streetlights outside the car window grew increasingly unfamiliar. Julian Booth's assistant broke the silence in the car. "Mr. Fong, Mr. Booth asked me to take you anywhere you'd like to go." "Where would you like to go?" "Where should I go?" I thought about it numbly, but every place that came to mind was filled with William's shadow. For so many years, I had been his shadow, and for a moment, I couldn't think of a single place I could go. After some deliberation, I said in a low voice, "The hospital, please." The last time I helped him through his rut, William told me to get the gland removed. So he was already preparing for today's birthday/engagement party back then. I was completely clueless. Even when Julian Booth told me to leave on William's birthday, I didn't suspect a thing. I only found out today that it was also an engagement party. The fact that William wasn't making a scene proved he knew about it all along. Making me wait until today to leave was just his way of making me give up all hope. I understood it all, but I found out too late. I hadn't prepared a gift to congratulate him on his engagement. All I could do was have the gland removed to fulfill his wish. Before entering the operating room, I couldn't resist searching for news about William and Noah's event today. In the photo, William was leaning down slightly, listening intently to the gently smiling Noah beside him. His expression held a tenderness I had never seen before. The sight made my breath catch, and my heart prickled with a sharp, numb pain. "Mr. Fong, are you ready?" a nurse asked, walking over. After a few deep breaths, I handed my phone to the waiting assistant and nodded at the nurse. Implanting the synthetic gland had been painful, and removing it sent a sharp pain through my neck and heart. Even with anesthesia, it didn't seem to work. An overwhelming wave of agony washed over me, drowning me completely. I couldn't tell what hurt more, my heart or my neck. All I knew was that the moment the synthetic gland was removed from my body, the connection I had with William was severed for good. My chest felt hollow. When I returned to the hospital room, I found that the news article I had been reading before the surgery had been deleted. All other reports about the two of them had vanished into thin air. My call log showed numerous missed calls from William. My message inbox was flooded with his voice messages. I couldn't help but play one. William's aggrieved voice immediately filled the air. "Alex, you promised to wait for me. Where did you go? Didn't you say you were going to celebrate my birthday with me alone tonight? Why did you leave without a word?" As he spoke, William's voice became tinged with tears. "Was it because you were unhappy that I asked you to wear the little skirt? So I'll wear it. Babe, please don't leave me." My throat tightened. I opened my mouth and pressed the voice message button, but no sound came out. My fingers trembled as I typed out one last sentence. "William, I had the gland removed. Congratulations on your engagement." Without waiting for his reply, I shakily blocked his number. In the ultrasound room, I took the tissue Dr. Lee handed me and wiped the sticky gel off the back of my neck. "Mr. Fong, congratulations. You've completely recovered." I could feel Dr. Lee's broad smile even through his mask. From implantation to removal, the side effects of rejection had plagued me for 6 long years. Today, finally, the back of my neck was back to normal. The old burning itch was completely gone. In its place was a feeling of lightness. Looking at the freshly printed report, I let out a sigh of relief and said goodbye to Dr. Lee. My phone rang, and a clear, childish voice came through. "Daddy Alex, why didn't you and Daddy come to pick me up? Did you both forget about your little buddy?" As he spoke, the little guy's voice started to break. 2 years ago, after the gland was removed, I had a complete emotional breakdown, and my physical health plummeted. My good friend Leo Tao, whom I hadn't seen in days, heard the news and came to get me with his son, Sam. The soft little baby healed me, helping my emotions gradually stabilize. I became Sam's godfather and often brought him home to keep me company. How could I forget about my little buddy? I soothed him gently. "I'm on my way right now." I walked out, chatting with Sam to calm him down. In the evening glow, I saw a familiar figure in the distance. The alpha glanced over, his eyes cool and distant. I froze, momentarily unable to even hear Sam's voice on the phone. What was William doing here? When I looked again, the spot was empty. I must have been mistaken. For 2 years, I've been coming for regular checkups and have never once run into William. What were the chances of meeting him on my very last visit? I didn't think much of it and got on my electric scooter to pick Sam up from daycare. My little scooter zipped through the long street and turned into an alley. Sam swung his little legs and suddenly said, "Daddy Alex, there's an uncle behind us watching us." A chill ran down my spine, and goosebumps broke out all over my skin. "Sam, what are you talking about?" I stopped the scooter and turned my head stiffly to look. The entrance to the alley was empty. "He's gone now," Sam said. I just assumed he had mistaken a passerby. Rain began to fall outside, pattering against the window. Amidst the noisy rain, the doorbell rang. Sam ran to open the door in his slippers, calling out "Daddy" a few times. Then there was silence. That's strange. There's no way Sam would be this quiet after seeing Leo. "Buddy, is your daddy here?" I peeked my head out of the kitchen and, upon seeing the big and small figures staring at each other in the entryway, fell silent just like Sam. William was soaking wet, his dark eyes fixed on me, his lips pressed into a tight line. For a moment, my rational mind screamed at me to rush forward and lock the door. But my feet felt as if they were nailed to the floor, unable to move. William seemed to be still processing Sam's cries of daddy, his eyes flickering with unconcealed surprise. Taking a moment to regulate my breathing, I calmed myself down. My contract with the Booths had ended early. I had no reason to be afraid of him. After a long silence, William asked coldly, "Aren't you going to welcome me in?" "It's not." I had just started to speak when William interrupted me again. "Alex, you've got some real nerve. Running away is one thing, but you even dared to hide here." Flashes of fragmented memories flickered through my mind, and the back of my neck, which had already healed, seemed to itch again. As I stood there dazed, William approached step by step, an invisible pressure radiating from him. I couldn't help but take a few steps back. Remembering Sam was with me, I quickly scooped him into my arms. With a child present, William wouldn't dare do anything to me. Seeing this, William gave a self-deprecating laugh, his wet hair plastered to his forehead. "I thought you had a lot of nerve. Why are you so scared of me now?" I avoided his gaze and said to Sam, my meaning clear, "Sam, don't open the door for strangers anymore. Understand?" Sam mumbled in his defense, "But if I don't open the door, how would I know if it's a stranger outside?" He watched as William familiarly closed the door behind him and continued, "Besides, this uncle doesn't seem like a stranger. Daddy Alex, I've seen his picture on your phone." He proudly showed off his memory, hoping for praise. Little did he know, he had just sold me out completely. William's eyes suddenly lit up. "A picture? I deleted it a long time ago," I denied flatly. Out of consideration for the years the Booths had sponsored me, I didn't kick William out. I even found him some clean clothes to change into. Then I treated him like he was invisible and went back to the kitchen to continue cooking. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I was pulled into a warm embrace. We hadn't seen each other in 2 years, but the muscle memory etched deep in my body made me instinctively lean back against the alpha's chest. Amidst my ragged breathing, a hot liquid dripped onto my neck. The man who had been stone-faced in the entryway was now silently weeping. The tears scalded me back to my senses, and I struggled a little. "William, let go of me." William held me even tighter, his eyes red as he questioned me. "Babe, you marked me. Why did you leave me?" Through the thin fabric of my shirt, I could easily feel his burning body temperature. I just assumed he was delirious from a fever caused by the rain. I jabbed my elbow back. "You've got the wrong person. I'm a beta. I don't have the ability to mark you." "I'm not wrong," William sobbed quietly. "It was you who marked me." He let go of me and bent down in front of me. Tearing off the scent patch on his gland, a splash of green jumped into my vision. Looking closer, I saw it was a small green pear tattoo. In an instant, my heart stopped beating. My mind was filled with nothing but the tiny tattoo before me, and the scent of my own synthetic pheromones after the implant. What did William mean by this? Glands are fragile and sensitive. Why would he get a tattoo there? I hadn't even had a chance to figure it out. William cupped the back of my head and lowered his mouth to mine. The kiss went from light to heavy, from shallow to deep, stealing my breath and throwing my thoughts into chaos. It wasn't until I was breathless and my limbs were weak that William reluctantly let me go. "Liar," William sniffled, his voice a low accusation. "You promised me you wouldn't leave, but the moment I turned my back, you were gone. And not only did you disappear, but you also blocked me, so I couldn't even find you if I wanted to." He looked both hurt and angry, and the storm in his eyes made my heart stop. We stared at each other in silence for a few seconds. A tear fell from the corner of William's eye, vanishing in an instant. I fidgeted with my fingers and looked down. "Aren't you the same? You told me not to leave you, but then you made me watch you have an engagement party with another Omega. And here I was, thinking it was just a party to celebrate your birthday. Who knew it was mainly for your engagement?" The person who had been so righteous just a moment ago instantly wilted. "I didn't," William stammered. "I never agreed to get engaged to Noah. I only found out about it that day." and his compatibility with me isn't as high as Julian said. I can't even smell his pheromones. The reason I went into rut that day was because the butler, following Julian's orders, sprayed an induction agent on the sofa. It wasn't because of Noah. Also, I only met him 2 or 3 times when we were kids. We're not childhood friends, and there's no way I would ever marry him. The person who grew up with me has always been you. The person I love has always been you. William's fingers caressed my cheek as he asked softly, "Alex, you love me too, don't you?" William carefully watched my expression, holding his breath as he waited for my answer. His patience eventually ran out. He pulled me into an unyielding embrace, his arms wrapping around me like vines. "Alex, if you don't answer, I'll take that as a yes. Besides, you've already marked me." Speaking of the mark, I tilted his head and examined the small green pear tattoo on his skin. "Why did you?" "Because you can't mark me, and I can't mark you," William's voice dropped. "So I had to find another way to mark us, to let everyone know that it can only be you, no one else." His words moved me. That, combined with the tattoo on his gland, made my heart pound uncontrollably. Did it hurt? It stopped hurting a long time ago. William's lips curved into a smile as he took my hand and placed it on his gland. I silently traced my fingers over his gland. My nose twitched, but I couldn't smell a single trace of pheromones. Now that I'd had the synthetic gland removed, I could no longer smell William's pheromones. I thought about how he had told me to have the gland removed, and a sense of loss washed over me. "You said Noah's compatibility with you wasn't high. So why did you want me to get rid of the gland?" Without it, there was no way to soothe William's ruts. William leaned down and kissed the back of my neck, explaining softly, "Because your rejection reactions were too painful. I didn't want you to keep suffering needlessly." Was that really why? Although my compatibility with William was the highest after the implant, my own body's compatibility with the synthetic gland was the lowest among all the betas who received it. Years of rejection had made me gradually accustomed to that gnawing itch. If William hadn't suggested it, I never would have thought of having it removed. It doesn't matter if you have pheromones or not. As long as you're with me, that's all that matters, babe. I opened my mouth, about to say something. A small, indignant voice came from the side. "Daddy Alex, how much longer are you and this uncle going to hug?" Sam patted his round little belly. "I'm about to faint from hunger." A blush immediately crept up my cheeks. I hurriedly pushed William away and served the food. "Dinner's ready, buddy. Go wash your hands." After washing his hands, Sam grabbed a spoon and climbed onto his chair, waiting for me to serve him rice. William sat down next to Sam, clumsily feeding him a few bites of meat. He kept glancing at me, looking like he wanted to say something several times. As the night grew dark and Sam was fast asleep under his blanket, William watched him silently for a while before tentatively asking, "Babe, isn't our son growing a little too fast? It's only been 2 years, right? How does he already look 3 or 4? I shot him a speechless glare. So that's what he'd been thinking since he walked in the door. He sure had a wild imagination. "You're overthinking it," I said, tucking Sam in. "He's my friend's son, my godson. He has nothing to do with you." "Oh," William said with a hint of disappointment, and said no more. When I woke up the next day, the room was bright with daylight. I hadn't slept so soundly in a long time. I reached out to the spot beside me, and when my hand met with coolness, I shot up. Where were Sam and William? Staring at the clothes hanging on the balcony, my mind suddenly flashed to a person I didn't want to think about. My smile froze, and I slowly lowered my head, lost in thought. 2 years ago, Julian Booth kicked me out of the Booth family, forbidding a beta like me from being with the family's heir. Would he have changed his mind 2 years later? Impossible. Yesterday felt like a dream, as if the heavens had heard my wish from 2 years ago and belatedly granted it. Now that a night had passed, was everything going to go back to the way it was? The sound of childish laughter came from outside, followed by the closing of a door. William appeared at the bedroom door. His face lit up with a smile I hadn't seen in a long time. "Babe, you're awake." William walked over in a few steps and gave me a kiss. Sam and I went to buy breakfast. Get up and eat. I was still in a daze, trying to process the reality of the scene before me. William was still here, and he had taken Sam to buy me breakfast. Babe? William waved his hand in front of my face. Still sleepy? I snapped out of it and shook my head. No. The thought of Julian Booth ruined my appetite for breakfast. Probably thinking he had upset me, Sam quietly went to the sofa to read a picture book after finishing his meal, leaving William and me to stare at each other in silence. After a long while, I cleared the dishes and went into the kitchen. William followed me in, sticking to me like glue. He stood beside me, staring at me without blinking. After watching for a long time, he finally asked, "Babe, are we together now? Did you agree to be my partner?" I hadn't agreed to anything yet, but that hadn't stopped him from calling me babe over and over, had it? My thoughts were a mess, and I didn't really want to deal with him, so I turned on the faucet. Over the sound of rushing water, William buried his face in my back and nuzzled the nape of my neck. The sensation sent a shiver down my spine. Babe, am I dreaming right now? That's what I should be asking. My hands were covered in soap, so I couldn't push him away. I could only nudge him with my elbow. Don't call me that. William winced, his face visibly falling. Why? Haven't I always called you that? So what if you have? I took a deep breath and asked, feigning calmness, have you forgotten? Julian won't agree to us being together. Are you planning on taking me back to be your secret lover? William's eyes widened, and he raised his voice in denial. Never. Alex, I promise you, no one will stand in our way. We were already stopped 2 years ago. I didn't dare to even think about it anymore. I took control of the family business a long time ago. Julian is sick and I sent him to a nursing home. He can't control me. Besides, my life is my own. I'll be with whoever I want to be with. Why should I listen to anyone else's opinion? I bit my lip and muttered softly, "Is that so?" It's the absolute truth. For some reason, my nose started to sting. I was just about to say something, but William tilted my chin up and sealed my lips with a deep, inseparable kiss. A long time later, he reluctantly pulled away and buried his face in my neck, murmuring, "Alex, can you say yes now?" Yes, I agree." Ignoring my wet hands, I turned and hugged him back.